This video is made for adult collectors because some clips from the movie are leaking online, so try to be careful and don't look at them. Also, stop recording movies in theaters. Alright, Bumblebee. Elita. Stand up straight. Stand up, there we go. Orion Pax. And Megatron. Transformers 1 releases literally in a few days from the time of me writing this. There goes my dog. And what better way to kick off this new film than with some new toys? This is the entire, well, entirely released line of YOLO Park Transformers 1 figures. We got Orion, D16, B-127, Elita, Orion, D16, B-127, and Elita again. Also, I've seen the film. There will be no spoilers in this video. Go watch it when it releases. It is fantastic. Yeah, both COG and COGless. And I like the fact that they're doing the COGless versions at the smaller $15 price point, because that means if you don't want to spend the 30 or 31 bucks on the bigger dudes, you can spend 15 and get these and still have versions of the characters, so that's really cool. These were also sent over by YOLO Park. They have a ton of Transformers online, and these guys, which should be shipping now, I think. And if you use code toyguy, you'll save an extra 5%, though some exclusions do apply. Link will be in the description down below if you want to go check them out. Thank you for sponsoring today's video. Now back to the actual toys. I guess the best way to do this is to look at the COGless and then COG'd versions of each character, then cover articulation and features and things at the end. So let's start with B, because he's the one that's closest to my keyboard right now. I really like B's look. He's probably my favorite of the 4 COGless designs. The bright, vibrant yellows and the dark gunmetal gray, they just go so well together. I dig the design of the feet, looking like they're supposed to have wheels there, and he's COGless, so he doesn't actually have wheels. And how the yellow armor is spread out. He comes with a bunch of alternate hands and a T-Cog, so he can be as expressive as you want him to be. And he also comes with the little helmet thing that you see in the trailers during the famous Badassatron scene. It can sit atop his head or cover his face. He also comes with a bonus jetpack, as advertised on the box. It's a cool piece and it looks nice, and it just pegs into the back after removing the back armor. Then going into the larger B, this is my favorite of the whole set. The gold is so shiny, it looks so good. The details are nice and crisp. It looks exactly like it did in the trailers and all that sort of stuff. He's also the most solid of the bunch. I dig the head, though the battle mask is stuck on mine. I think these are final copies, but everyone else who they've sent copies to, it doesn't seem to have this issue, so as far as I know, that's just a me thing, but he does come with an alt face. I just can't swap it because it's stupid. He also has extra hands and blades and a blaster, which when plugged into his hand flares out the armor around it and it falls off because it's a model kit, but it looks like it transforms. That's sick. Just take it slow when pegging the hands and stuff into the ball sockets on all of these figures because they are model kits. They're technically, the plastic is a little bit weaker because you have to build it yourself. So I say model kit, you build them like a Bionicle. He also does the thing where bending the knees make the armor move from the front and the back. Like, I love how that shifts. That's sick. Next up is Elita. Yes, don't worry, they put a nose on the face sculpt, but Elita is probably the most dynamic of the bunch, like both of them. The COGless one is probably my second favorite of the set because of the way her limbs are built. It lends her to a lot of really good posing options. She can get real low or do like some really high kicks or cool flips. Couple that with her expressive hands and the jetpack and you can do some very interesting stuff. Her colors are nice. The white doesn't lose the details and the purpley pink or whatever the hell this color is looks really nice. Same with that like little bits of gray. She also comes with a T-Cog. All the COGless ones do. Her knees look the coolest of the COGless bots because when they bend they look more like robot bits. Now her COG'd figure is very cool. I thought she only had single jointed knees, but no, mine were just stuck. She has double jointed knees and that is epic. Again, probably the most dynamic out of the 4 COG'd figures. She feels a lot like a Gundam to me. I love all the new bits of detail, how the white on the torso extends into the gray parts and how the feet are actually attached to the wheels. She also comes with a bunch of alt hands and a gun this time, and she has a separate joint in her arm to allow her to better hold and two-hand the gun, like in the trailer, although she kind of has a dinky grip on the gun and it just falls out a lot. She also has a crazy articulated torso, but I'll get more into that later. I just wish her purpley pink, or whatever that color was called, was a bit more metallic like Bumblebee. It's very flat. Now we got on to the main 2 of the film, Orion Pax and D16. D is pretty cool in COGless form with that very nice shiny silver and that industrial charcoal black. This guy is a very, like, he's almost beating Elita for me as my second favorite of the cogless bots. I dig all the little details here. The silver really helps bring them out more. He does rattle a bit though. The armor panels on the legs shift up and down a little bit. They aren't gonna fall off because it's the bits in the middle, but they still rattle and it's a bit strange. He also has a selection of hands, a T-cog, and a jetpack, which for him, I actually leave the jetpack on because for me, that looks the best personally. And then we get onto the cogged one, and this is where I start to have issues. Chief of which being the shoulders were way too loose out of the box. I had to thicken them up a lot before they would actually stay in place. Now everything's fine though. On the Megatron is probably the flimsiest of the bunch, but that's by no means bad. It just means he's a little less solid than the rest. Like his limbs are a tiny bit floppy on their joints. He has that sort of dusty yellowed look to the silver, just like Studio Series Optimus Prime, but it only shows up in certain lighting and it's kind of a neat effect. He has his fusion cannon and the other smaller thing and a selection of alternate hands. His armor can shift out of the way to accommodate the motion of like the shoulders, though the hip skirts only fold out but remain in very similar spots at the front. So he doesn't really have the best hip movement. Like it moves forward, but then you're flexing things. And he doesn't have drop down hips, which I wish he did. Now we get onto Orion Pax. He's neat. Both figures are solid. The cogless design is great because it uses that nice lush silver that D16 did, and he actually has that gaping hole in his chest for the cog to go in like D16. The head looks a bit, I don't know, like gummy. It's like the best way I can describe the face is it looks gummy. Like the details in the plastic, it looks a bit strange. He does come with, yes, another selection of hands, a jetpack, and a T-cog. Now you can have D16 and Orion Pax fist bump, jetpack off, and then play COD, I don't know. Cogged Orion though is really nice, carrying over that lush silver from the cogless one. He doesn't have that yellowy effect that D16 had in his silver, and I kind of wish he did. This one I also think looks good from the back. The other figures look fine, but they aren't really much to write home about. This one though is the most visually interesting back here as well as the front. I do have one issue though, and that's the shoulder pads. They're on a double hinge to move out of the way to accommodate the arm motion, but they are super tight on my copy. So instead of moving, they just come apart quite often because the joint's too tight, so the plastic just pops off. If I move them manually first and it doesn't have that issue, it's just a little annoying. I could glue everything. This is a model kit after all. Everything else on this guy build-wise though is fine. The hip skirts even have an extra couple of joints in them to get them out of the way even more. Head also looks a lot nicer here. He doesn't have that like weird keyboard sort of typed in cat face thing that the prototype seemed to have. It looks a lot more natural here. I like that. He also comes with yet another selection of hands, but he also has a gun so he can shoot people. But unlike Elita, it doesn't have that arm joint, so making him hold the gun look natural is just weird. It just sticks out to the side. I also noticed, because I removed the chest, he has a molded and painted in matrix under there. That's a little Easter egg from YOLOPark. I like that. So Bumblebee, or B-127, he has everything you'd want. Like his head can look up and down. It's on a ball joint, tilt left and right, rotate. Shoulders could rotate, they can go out. They've got a secondary hinge there. And because they're on ball joints, they can kind of wiggle in and out a bit. You got 90 degrees or over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, bicep rotation, wrists are on ball joints. He has a waist joint. The hip skirts move up this way, so the legs can kick forward that far back and they can go in and out. You have thigh rotation. I ripped his leg off. You have a single jointed knee, and then the ankles can pivot back more so that they can go up, and then he has a little bit of ankle tilt. So he's pretty good. I like him. Elita's posing is pretty nuts. So the head is on a ball joint. Mine's a little loose, but I can fix that. Head's on a ball joint. It can tilt around. It can look up and down. Shoulders can do a full 360. They can also go out that far. You have bicep rotation, 90-degree elbow bend, wrist on ball joint. Waist can rotate. The hip skirts move with it, which is a bit but at least they're really good at getting out of the way. Legs can go forward. They can go back. They can go in and out. Oop, rip the leg off. You have thigh rotation. It's very tight, so every time I do it, it just sort of takes the leg off with it. You have double jointed knees, and then the ankles can go down, they can go up, and you have some ankle pivot. Megatron, or D16, he has a foot thing that's weird. So his head is really tight on my copy, but it can rotate and tilt and look up and down. Oh man, that's so stiff. Shoulders can do a full 360. That shoulder pad came off. They can go out that far. You have bicep rotation, double jointed elbow that bends about that far. Wrists are on a ball joint. You can hear it rattling. Waist rotation, hips go forward and back, in and out. Thigh rotation, double jointed knees, and then the ankles can go down, up, and they can pivot. ever so slightly that way. And if you go any further, it just comes right off. Because this ball socket is a little too shallow for this ball peg. Like, it doesn't really sit fully inside. There's a little bit of the ball joint just sticking out in there. It's kind of hard. There you go. You can see it sticking out there. So the feet come off a little bit easier than I would like them to. Orion, head ball joint, shoulder ball joint. They can go out all the way. You have bicep rotation, double jointed elbows, ball jointed wrists, waist rotation. Now the hip skirts do something really interesting. You can pull them out and then they shift up like this to get the leg to go all the way up and back, in and out. Stiff ass thigh swivels. Let's get that hip skirt back into place. 90-degree bend at the knee, and the ankles can go down, up, and you have pivot and rotation because ball joint. But then we bring in the cogged robots, and these things are very, very posable. So Bumblebee, or B-127 again here, has an immense range at the head, like so much range. He can look up, he can look down, tilt, you got rotation. Like, this is the best head articulation I think I've ever seen on a YOLO Park figure. That is insane. Shoulders, you can do a full 360. They rotate inside the torso, so you can see that piece move, which is really cool. The shoulder pad moves out to allow the arm to go up that far. You have a bicep rotation, double jointed elbows. You have wrists are on ball joints. Now the torso, it pretty much can do however you want. There's like a diaphragm joint in there. He can crunch, he can tilt side to side. So that's nice. You have a waist joint as well. Hip skirts can go out that way, and then the butt flap they're attached to can also shift. So you can get the hips to kick forward that far, back that far, in and out. You have thigh rotation. You have that bend at the knee, and then the feet can go, well, that's as far as the foot can go down. The feet can go up, which shifts this little piece of armor, which is kind of cool. And then you have a toe bend and an ankle pivot. So he's very poseable, and he's the most solid of the four, so like getting him into any sort of pose is really fun to do. Then we have Elita. Elita's only thing I don't like is her ankles, because the head, again, just like Bumblebee, is very expressive, and it's a double jointed neck. So she can look pretty much wherever you want her to, which is great. Shoulders can do a full 360. They can go out that far. You do a butterfly joints, bicep rotation, single jointed elbows. However, if you rotate the arm, you can get double jointed elbows because of that like gun joint that it has. You have the wrists are on ball joints, a little limited, but not terrible. Probably the best torso articulation out of all these figures. Like, she can arc back, crunch forward, tilt side to side, rotate. Like, there's so much going on in there. There's the assembly in there is insane too. It's like a ball joint on a hinge on another hinge on a swivel thing. Hip skirts are on ball joints so they can move out of the way. The hip skirt at the front does not move, but she has SS102 type hips. So they drop down and go forward that far. They can go back that far. They can go out that far. You have thigh rotation. You have that really stiff double jointed knee that sort of shifts this armor up a bit, which is kind of cool. And the ankles can go down all the way. They can go up all the way, or almost, there you go. They can go up all the way. But the ankle pivot's only that. And I really wish there was more than just that. Now we get into D16. Head is really stiff and likes to just come apart on my copy, but it's the same sort of ball joint. Well, actually, there's a hinge in this one as well to allow him to look down and to look up. And there's also a ball joint, so he can do all that sort of stuff. Shoulder pads move out of the way, butterfly joints. You got shoulders can go out. Bicep rotation, double jointed elbows that bend all the way. Wrist is on a ball joint. The waist can tilt side to side. It can crunch forward and back and rotate, though mine is very stiff. Now the hip skirts do that thing I talked about earlier where they just swing. I wish they did more than that. But the hips can go forward, they can go back, they can go in and out. You have thigh rotation. You've got double jointed knees, which collapses the armor slightly inside the leg, which I think is neat. That's pretty cool. The knee pads can move, and the ankles can go, well, they can't really go forward because of the ankle guards, but they can go back and the ankle guards move. And you have ankle tilt, and you have a toe bend as well. So his posing is probably the weakest of the four, I'd say, but it's by no means bad. We have Orion Pax. So the head, again, really solid, really well articulated. It's just one ball joint. The shoulders can do a full 360. He's got butterflies. They can go, oops, see, the shoulder pad's starting to detach. You have to move the shoulder pad up first, then out, then move the shoulders out, but you can get a full T pose. You do have a bicep swivel. You have double jointed elbows that really only bend about that far. Wrists can rotate. that shoulder pad back down. He does have the same sort of like torso articulation. You got a crunch and an arc and side to side, though it pivots down here as opposed to up here on most of them. The hip skirts are on a ball joint as well as a ball joint and hinge assembly inside here, so they can move up and out of the way to allow the leg to go forward that far, back that far, in and out. You have thigh rotation, that fell off. You have a single jointed knee that bends all the way, and when it does that, it not only does it compress all this, like all that goes in, but it exposes so much more detail in here. Look at this. That's super cool. I like that. That's such a good looking knee. And then the ankles can go down, up, and you have ankle tilt and a very, very minute toe bend. So yeah, they're posable. They're very posable. It's just, I wish his build quality was a little bit better. It's just, posing him to me is probably the weakest of the four in experience, because the loose joints, the tight joints, the floppiness of some parts, everyone else is fine. I think it's just my copy of this guy, but like, I wish he was a little bit better. So I like all of them, though the issues I had on COG, D16, and Orion make me like them less so than the others. Like I said, I've fixed most of them, and they're technically model kits, just mostly pre-assembled. So like they're not, you're supposed to like put work into them. That's the whole point. But it is still a little annoying. I still recommend them. If you're willing to put that extra bit of work into D16 and Orion Pax, then they're great. But the others, I think, are pretty fine out of the box. But that's been my look at the YOLO Park, almost said Rise of the Beast, YOLO Park TF1 figures. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.